without answers, but tells you where the answers, you can find them. So take one and pass them around. Maybe we'll have a chance to actually get to them. Is anyone here?
I just got one.
That's all right. It doesn't say judicial states. No, that's all right. I'll figure it out somehow. Are we ready? Okay.
On recording now.
Hi, we're recording. Look at that. How about that? I'll say hello to myself and all the thousands of people that are streaming this live. Welcome to everybody there. See a few people are actually on there. Congratulations. So the Parsha this week is the Chukotai. And some people say the Chukosai. It depends on if you're reading Sephardic or Ashkenazic. And what page is it on in this book? 708. Very often, this is combined with another Parsha Bahar, and they come out as together. And so certain years like this one, they have to be separated. And there's a rule. And the rule is that the Chukotai has curses in it. It has blessings, a lot of blessings, we'll talk about those. And it has some curses in it as well. And we're about to have a big holiday. What's the holiday that's coming up? Shavuot. So there's a rule. We have to read the curses before Shavuot, but we don't want to go into Shavuot sad and nervous and worried about these curses. So you told me it was what page? It was 7? 708. You guys have good books. Look at that. So what we do is we change the schedule with 1 or 2 parshiot so that it comes out always that there's the Chukotai, this one that we have this week with the blessings, but also curses in it. And we'll talk about what is tochachot, warnings really. And then you have to have a buffer of 1 Shabbat or 1 Parasha, and then you can have Shavuot. Because if you read this, you can get very nervous. And we don't want people going into the holiday nervous. So what is this all about? It's actually very interesting. On page 708, it starts with the word im. Im. Anyone know what that word is in Hebrew? What does it mean? With, or it can mean something else. Im. It can mean with. It can mean, or it can mean if. If. In the chukotai telechu, if you will go in my chukim. Now remember, you probably learned a lot about mitzvot, and there's different types of mitzvot. One of those categories is called chukim. So in the chukotai, if you go with my decrees, with my rules, with my laws, and God was saying, if you go with my laws and my mitzvot, that mitzvotai tishmoru, and my mitzvot you observe and you do them, then you're going to have what we call berachot. You're going to have gishmechem b'itam. Anyone ever hear the word geshem? Geshem is rain. You're going to have rain in its b'itam, in its right time, which we're going to find out what that means. And the land is going to give its produce. Ve'etz hasadeh yitem piryo. And the fruit of the trees of the field will give it its fruit. Beautiful blessings. But already, even in that pasuk, in that sentence, I can find problems. Anyone see any problems in the way that we just translated that pasuk or the way that we just read it? Isn't it, if I give the rain in its right time, fine. V'natanah ha'aretz yivrula translates it as, and the land will give its produce. Okay, the land will give its produce. What's the next statement that we see? The etz hasadeh yiten piryo, and the tree of the field will give its fruit. Well, first of all, what is the word field doing in there? It's hasadeh. It's a tree. I mean, what do you need the word field in there for? Right? Let the tree give us fruit. Why do you have to say the tree of the field? And then also, if the land is giving its produce, shouldn't that include trees? I'm just asking. I don't have an answer. Oh, I do, but I'm not sure you're going to get it tonight. But what I want is for you to think. I want you to see what's going on. So anyways, Rashi says something very interesting. And Rashi says, Im bechukotai telechu. If you follow my laws and you amelut b'torah, you toil, if you work hard and you struggle in Torah, then in the study of Torah and the observance of Torah, then you're going to get all these great rewards. You're going to get rain in its right time. Rain in its right time basically means parnasa. It means wealth. That's, we were all farmers. The rain comes, you grow your crops and you make money. The rain doesn't come and nobody eats, no one has enough food. And so Rashi is telling us, if you give yourself, dedicate yourself to not just reading and coming to a class once in a while, but you really give yourself to study of Torah, you're going to find out that there are people, they do all of the 613 commandments, and they can pray 3 times a day, and they're not going to get any reward for anything they're doing. Maybe they're doing the mitzvot, but if they're not learning Torah, then what are you going to do? And by the way, ladies, you can tell me, yeah, but ladies don't have to learn Torah the same as men. I'm going to tell you something that I want you to correct your thinking. If you learn just the laws of kashrut, how to keep kosher, which you need to know, I can take you a year. It can take you a lifetime to review and to get good at it. If you just learn the laws of nidah, the laws of family purity, it can take you a year, but a lifetime to practice it. It's unbelievable. And if you just learn the laws of what do we say? We said kashrut and nidah, and what else do the ladies have to learn? You have to know, Neiros. Yeah, you have to know the laws. Even if you study only the laws that apply to women, believe me, you will be busy and busy and busy for years and years and years to come to master. You know what it is to master the laws of prayer? You know what it is to master the laws of Shabbat? You know what it is to know all the ins and outs about the laws of kosher? And you have to do this. You have to know this. And men have to know this too, and men have to know a lot more. The women don't have to know the laws of tefillin, because they're not going to put on tefillin. You don't have to know the laws of wearing a talit, so you're not going to wear a talit. But you have to know the laws of Shabbat. You have to know the laws. And it's not just to know them. You got to study them and review them and go over and over them. Because actually, the Gemara says in the second Berachot, if you look at 28b, if you want to know where it is, it says that we toil. We work hard and we toil. Toil means to work hard in Torah, and we get a reward. Others, those that are not, not coming close to God and to the Torah, they can work hard day and night, and they will go unrewarded for what they're doing. Why is that way? Jews are rewarded for working hard in Torah, and other people are not rewarded. So the great rabbi, the Chafetz Chaim, said, allow me to explain with a little analogy. He says, a guy goes to a shoemaker and he says, I want you to make me a pair of shoes. The shoemaker says, what kind of shoes do you want? I want this kind and that kind, this sole. He gives them all the details and they agree on a price of $100 for the pair of shoes. When are they going to be ready? They're going to be ready in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks later, the guy comes back, wants to pick up his shoes. Shoemaker says, well, they're not quite ready yet, but boy, did I spend a lot of time working on them. And I want to be compensated for my efforts. So could you please pay me for my time so far? The guy says, I beg your pardon, sir, but Our deal was, you make me a pair of shoes, like we agreed on, and I pay you the money. I don't pay you for your efforts as you go along, right? So that's the way it is with everything else except for Torah. With Torah, the Chafetz Chaim explains it. He says it's completely different. And he says with Torah, you know what it is? Fulfilling Torah, fulfilling the mitzvot, if you try your best, you give it a good effort, you are rewarded for the effort that you made. Even if you don't completely understand what you're studying, you gave it the effort, you studied, you tried, right? Then you're rewarded. Even if you're not successful, you pick up a Talmud, you pick up something that's difficult, and you say, Rabbi, teach me, and the rabbi sits with you, and you bring him a cup of tea, and he tries it a second time, and you beg him, he tries it a third time, and you're still not understanding what this guy is talking about. And so you didn't get the finished product, you didn't get the pair of shoes, but you get the effort. Because in Torah, the reward comes for toiling, for working in it. And that's an amazing thing, because that's amelut b'Torah, that's working hard in Torah. It's different than working hard in any other field. In Torah, you're rewarded for the efforts, you're rewarded for trying. Not everybody's smart, not everyone's gonna get it, not everyone's gonna be a genius. But you try, and you try, and you try, and you never give up trying, that's Torah. It's not just something you learn to get a degree, like you go to college and you get a certificate, or you do a course and you get a certificate for completing the course. Look, I got this certificate, I know it. That's not what it is. It's a lifetime. And it's a lifetime of observance and study and study and study and study. And that's why it says, in the chukotai teleper. So we said it's like the word chok, right? The chukotai. Are you familiar with the concept of a chok? Okay, so if I'm too much, ask me to slow down. There are mitzvot that we can understand the reasons for them. Don't murder. I think we all pretty much figured out that that's a pretty good thing to do, right? Give charity. We understand those. So we'll do those mitzvot. But someone comes along and he says, you have to have the tefillin painted black with black straps. Why? Well, I like blue. Someone likes pink. Why can't I have color? You go in 100 years ago, you only saw talet with white or black stripes. That was it. Today you walk in, you see rainbows in synagogues. Everyone's got all kinds of different fancy designs and stuff. So they want to be unique. But in tefillin, you can't. But if somebody wants to, you have to tell them no. Well, why not? What's wrong? Black, blue, what's the difference? I prefer blue. Someone else prefers their favorite color is green. They want to connect to God wearing green tefillin. I'm sorry. It's a chok. A chok is a commandment that we have to follow that the Torah does not give us a reason for. That's a chok. We just have to do it because God said so. That's all. Okay? Linen and wool. We're not allowed to wear them together. Why not? Well, people answer this and that. Doesn't matter what you think the answer is. But Rambam tells us, even if you think you know the answer, you don't know the answer, but you're not free from continuing to look for the answer. But even when you look, you're still not going to know the answer. It's a chok. He says, he's telling you that it's the laws that I have already chok. The word chok actually means something else in Hebrew. It means engraved, or the words that I have etched out and decreed already. What this means is like this. Probably you remember in the Torah, there was the two sons of Aaron, and they wanted to bring a sacrifice when they inaugurated the temple. Anyone remember the story? What happened to them?
They died.
They died. Why did they die? Why did they die? Because they did something that they were not commanded to do. There was rules. You want to inaugurate the place? Inaugurate the place. Do it, follow the rules. They wanted to do something that was not in the rule book, that was not given by God.
They wasn't fired.
Right. They brought a fire that they were not commanded to bring, And that's what happens. So the idea is like this. If you ever went out in the forest and you see that there's a target painted on a tree, and you walk up a little closer and you see every hole is a bullseye. He said, wow, whoever's out here practicing must really be a good marksman, and then you investigate and you find out, the guy says, no. First I shot, then I went and I drew the arrows around it. I drew the target around it, So that's kind of like what it is. You think you know a better way to do God's laws? No, you can't do it. You have to use the laws that are already on the books first, and you have to do that. And that's with Torah observance, we're obligated to guide ourselves according to the laws that are already established by God. There's already rules, because a lot of times people think, I'm gonna take this little, drug over here and get closer to God, and that's not how you get close to God. That's not appropriate to get close to God that way. Don't think that you're serving God by doing something He doesn't want you to do, and that's why the Torah stresses, if you go in my statutes and you go in my ways and the laws that I've already enacted, then everything will be great. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on here. The first part talks about all these different blessings that we can have, and I got a bunch of them listed on the sheets in front of you, and we'll take a look at those in a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about these blessings, because they're telling you that if you go according to the Torah, everything's going to be great. But Rashi says, you know what's going to happen? If you don't, first you stop your diligent study of Torah. That's the first step. B, mitzvot, you stop fulfilling them. Because if you stop the study of Torah, and you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, then you're going to stop doing what you're doing. That's what happened a lot of times when they wanted to take a lot of the religious girls that grew up in Mea Sharim and some of the other very religious neighborhoods. And they said, Mom, Dad, I want to go into the Israeli army. And the Israeli army really wasn't built for the religious women that went to seminary their whole life. They had never been outside of their environment, this and that. And the parents were opposed to it, but the kids are kids, and the girls went. And when they got there, I heard this many times, they would go to light candles on Friday night, because that's what they saw their mother do. And then one of the other girl soldiers would say, that's nice. Why are you doing it? Why am I doing what? Why are you lighting candles? I don't know, my mother does it. Why does your mother do it? Her mother did it, and so on and so forth. Because she was doing the mitzvot, but she didn't have the learning that went with it. And Rashi says, when you don't have the diligent study, that's A. B, what's going to happen? The mitzvot are no longer going to be fulfilled. So we have A, diligent study stops. B, the mitzvot, you're not going to fulfill them any longer. C, then you start to have animosity and bad feelings towards people that actually keep the mitzvot. So he's a weirdo. He's doing all these strange things. I don't do them anymore because I didn't understand them. I didn't know why I was doing them, because I stopped studying. So therefore, I end up not only not doing it, I end up hating or resenting people that are doing them. And then what's the next step? It's always the rabbi's fault. After you hate the people that do mitzvot, you hate the rabbis that are still teaching people to do mitzvot. And then you try, the next step after that, you try and convince other people not to do mitzvot because you don't like to do mitzvot, and you don't want them to go to the rabbi's class because then they'll be too religious and they can't be your friends. The next step, you deny the authenticity of the mitzvot. You say, well, who's it from anyways? Who said it was God? I wasn't there. And then you come to the final stage of denying of God. So all these stages all comes from not studying Torah properly. I mean, it's a cause and effect. It's consequences. That's what our rabbis and our sages are telling us that's what's going to happen. And then the Torah goes on to detail all these catastrophes that are going to happen to our nation if we don't repent. And after each admonishment, the Torah comes along and it makes a statement. If you simply think that all this is happening, carry. The Torah uses the word carry. And carry means happenstance. It just happened. It's just mikre. If anyone speaks Hebrew, it's mikre. It just kara. It just happened. Well, in Hebrew, if you want to say something just happened, right? I don't know what happened. Mikre. It just happened. Well, the letters of mikre, I wish I had the board to write it on you, but write it out for you. It's Rak Me He. Rak Me Hashem. Mikre. It just happened. You think it's happenstance? It just happened. It's only from God. Everything is only from God. So if you think that this is just a crazy list that I gave you that of Rashi's steps, it's exactly what happened to us when we were leaving Egypt. There were many Jews that did not want to leave Egypt. Did you know that? Yeah. Did you know how many did not want to go? 8%. 8 out of 10 said, I'm not into this religious stuff. 8 out of 10. They're gone spiritually. That's it, over. And if you, it's just an amazing thing. In any case, so we have all kinds of important stuff, but we have berachot, we have kilalot. Berachot means the blessings, from like the word beracha, right? The blessings. Kilalot, the word kilala actually means a warning. We have many warnings, and many of them are devastating, and they've happened in history, and so that's really what's going on over here. So we're told if we learn Torah, if we keep the mitzvot and really do it, and we really study the Torah, then God will give us all kinds of blessings. But if we don't do the mitzvot, and we don't do those things, then tochacha. Tochacha means a warning. And that's what tochacha is. God says, I'm giving you warnings. What's going to happen? It's in the Torah. It's in the Bible. I'm not making this up. This is God's instructions for our life in this week's Parsha. It's one of the most serious Parshiot. As a matter of fact, when you go to synagogue on Saturday and they get up to the section where they start reading these tochachot, these kilalot, these warnings, you'll notice that the one who reads the Torah lowers his voice, reads it a little faster. We got to get through it. It's depressing. It's sad. Shabbat. I'm not supposed to be sad, but it's a warning. If you're doing if you keep the Torah and the mitzvot, you have nothing to worry about. But there are warnings of what happens to us and to the nation, and many good things. Rain will come, crops will grow, we'll have enough food to eat, we'll have lots of children, and the rain will come in its right time. What does it mean, rain in its right time?
In the season.
Yes, sir.
We want rain in the right season, exactly. But it also, rain is always good. I mean, rain, without rain, you don't have anything growing. But personally, I prefer that it doesn't rain on me when I'm trying to get home at night and I'm walking from the bus stop, or I have to walk. I'm going to get rained on. I'm not interested in that. So God says, you know what? Nighttime, most people, late at night, you're home already. Maybe I'll make it rain then. But there's a special time when most people are home around the table. What night is that? Friday night. And so if it rains on a Friday night, you should always know that's beracha. That's always a blessing, because people are usually at their homes, not out in the street. So rain's not going to bother them. That's a Friday night blessing, and that's just an amazing thing. There's going to be plenty of food, we said, as the blessings, right? Things are going to grow. As a matter of fact, you'll notice, if you look at all the verses on your sheets, will be so much food growing that the grain will grow even before you're finished threshing the grain that's out in the field. It'll be time to harvest the grapes. You have the grains, and then you're in the middle of trying to make it into flour. boom, all of a sudden the grapes are ready for harvest. And then when you're done with the grapes, it'll be time for the new wheat again, and so on and so forth. And you'll never finish what's in your storerooms. You'll always have more food than you know what to do with. But there's also going to be a blessing in the food that you won't need to eat so much to be satisfied. Wouldn't that be nice? I didn't get the memo.
Don't want to gain weight.
Yeah. There's something else that happens if you follow all these good blessings. And that is, nobody likes war. We know what war is. We look at Israel all the time. We've been through so many different wars. We're going to remember on Sunday, Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, remembering 1967 when we got Jerusalem back after so many years, such a beautiful, holy day. We remember the wars. You look around the world now, what's happening. War is terrible. People don't want war. Not only that, let's say that somebody wants to go attack another country. And to get there, they need to go through your land. Now, they're not going to kill you, right? They're not going to destroy your fields. They're not going to do anything terrible. They might even pay you to let you go through their land. But people get scared when they see soldiers and the tanks and they see weapons. And they're just, it's not a good thing. They don't like when they see soldiers going, even if they were coming from Egypt through Israel to go attack Syria. Do I care if they attack Syria? But they go through my land of Israel, it's scary. I'm gonna be very upset about that thing. And so we're told, if you do the Torah, you're not gonna have any wars in the land of Israel. You won't even have armies passing through somewhere else, because that'll make you scared. So that's pretty much, you want a good life, Torah is telling you how to do it. It's Torah, it's mitzvot, and it's Torah study, it's living a good life. And also that we're told that we're going to have, a place where God can find us, we can find God, the Bet HaMikdash. We'll have a Bet HaMikdash if we study and do all these things. But, as we said, there's a warning if we don't do it. And Hashem warned us, God Almighty warned us, that if we are bad, if we don't obey, then we'll be punished. And what will happen? The people will be hungry, wild animals will come. I'm just summarizing this in here. And there will be wars in the land of Israel, which is not good for us. And God will send a plague, and your temples will be destroyed, and you'll be chased out of Israel. And it's an amazing thing. You don't do the mitzvot. How many of you learned about Shemitah? Shemitah. You learned last week? Shemitah? The sabbatical every 7 years?
Yeah.
Do you know that how many years we were exiled after the first temple was destroyed? Anyone know how long we were out between the first and second temple? It was 70 years. Do you know how many times we as a nation didn't keep Shemitah? 70. It's correlation, it's 1 for 1. 70 years for the 70 times we didn't keep the Shemitah. Because it says, oh, wait a minute, it's only one mitzvah out of 613. Why get such a punishment for breaking one out of 613 mitzvot that you're kicked out of your land and your holy temple is destroyed? You know why? Because when you say, I don't want to do the Shemitah, you're saying I'm denying God's plan, and I'm denying God's existence or his controlling of everything that's going on over here. I wrote it in my notes somewhere a little bit better than that. Let me see if I can find it. He says, because it's a fundamental teaching in Shemitah that God has divine mastery over the entire world. And if you don't keep the Shemitah, you violate it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. It's a collective denial amongst all the people of the land that we think that we control our property. We think we control our own land. And the only way that God can teach the Jewish people that He alone is in control of the world was to exile us from our land if we didn't keep the law of the Shemitah. And so that's why there were exactly 70 years for the 70 Shemitot that we violated during our stay in the land of Israel, from the time we got there until the time the temple was destroyed. 70 times 7. It gives you an idea how long we were there. In any case, so we're learning a lot. I don't know, let's see if we can go on a little bit more. Let's see what's the headline for you over here. I do want to get to some of the questions in a minute, but one of the things, one of the first, let me rephrase that. One of the worst things that we have going on in our generation is people are afraid. People are afraid of their own shadows. People are afraid of everything. People are so scared. We have the whole pandemic and people will go out and everyone's scared and this and that. And Baruch Hashem, like it's a little better now, hopefully. The Tochacha in the Torah says, you know what's going to happen? You're going to hear some sounds and you're going to think it's an army coming to attack you. What happens when an army is coming to attack you? You get up and you run away. But it's only going to be leaves in the trees making the noise. That's what the Torah says. That's what it says. Hey, you'll see. I think it's on the question, one of the questions, I believe. I think it is. But anyways, there was a, by the way, it just happened. It just happened in our times. There was a panic you ever hear of the Lakewood Yeshiva? And again, one of the biggest yeshivot where they studied Torah day and night and thousands of people studying. And they had a little panic. They didn't know what it was some kind of threat. And they cleared out the Beit Midrash. Everybody had to go out to the streets. I'm talking 1,000 guys going out, stopping to study Torah because of some panic they were scared of. And they get outside and they're all standing in the streets, and then they realize, nah, it's okay, we can go back in. So they were laughing about it. They went back in and they were laughing. And the big rabbi over there got up and he goes, you boys are laughing. This is what it says in this week's Parsha, that you will get scared from wind blowing. It's nothing. And you're going to run away like someone's chasing you. No one chased you. It was the wind blowing. And they have, if you think that, okay, so I made that story up. Go back and see the Talmud. There's a rabbi, Rabbi Yeshua ben Korchan. He was one of the rabbis who lived in the times of the Gemara. And he's once sitting under a tree. And, the wind caused the leaves on the tree to shake. And he heard the noise and he thought it was an army coming. And he thought they were coming to attack his land. And he was so afraid that he got up and he ran away in fear. And when he finally turned around and he said, nothing's coming, he realized, it wasn't it was the wind blowing in the trees. He says, you know what? That's the punishment that God warned us about in this Parsha. We do not keep God's commandments, and He will punish us. So I'm not a guy that likes to threaten you or make you get scared about what's written in the Torah. You have to do it because you love God. You have to do it because you want to do it. If you don't want to do it, you're wasting your time. Go home. But if you want to do it because it's the right thing to do. But if you think of Almighty God as giving us an instruction book for life, that's the Torah. And if you think of God the way you should as infinite knowledge, then these rules must be good rules for us. If God loves you, which He does, then He gives you rules to live by. It must be for your own good. Sometimes you have to take medicine that doesn't taste good, right? The kids, they always scream, don't. But it's for their own good. Son, same thing over here. But God is warning you. As a nation, we have rules to follow. Individuals, we have rules to follow. And, that's the way it is. Now, we didn't follow the rules of the Torah. So God says, fine. there's this guy, his name is Nebuchadnezzar, and he was a king of Babel, Babylonians. God says, I'll send him to you, and I'll let him destroy you, destroy your temple, exile you, make you into slaves, do whatever needs to be done to teach you a lesson. And he attacked, and he went to the city of Jerusalem, and it was surrounded by a very, very big wall, very thick wall. And there was doors in the wall, of course, and they didn't let anyone in, and they didn't let anyone go out. And that's everything that happened over there. That's called a siege. There was a siege around the city. And Nebuchadnezzar and his soldiers, they didn't let any food into that city. You know how long that siege lasted, anyone? Almost. How much? How long? 3 years. 3 years. 3 years. And they didn't, no one can come in, no one can go out. And the people were very hungry. They had no food to eat. And many of them died of hunger. And many of them became sick. And they died. And Nebuchadnezzar and his soldiers spent 3 years surrounding the wall. For 3 years. They were dying for 3 years. Nebuchadnezzar and his people were trying to break through the wall. And they killed many people when they finally did. And that's it. So now, when we finally get to reading this on Shabbat, I don't want you to get scared. Some people, some people just don't know very much. A little knowledge is dangerous. I remember when I was a kid, there was a guy who would get up and he would walk out every time we would read this every year. There's another section in the Torah that comes later in Devarim that also is curses and stuff like that. This comes twice. And why? There's two, they're about different things, different time periods and different categories. But in any case, I remember a guy that would always walk out of synagogue. And one time he was walking by, and my dad and my father, I love us all, said to him, "Where are you going?" And we knew where he was going. He says, "I can't be here for this." My father said, "Well, you think it's going to change? It's the same one we read last year. What do you think? The ending's going to be different this year?" He said, "It's in the Torah. Please stay." The guy wouldn't stay. That's all there is to it. So I grew up knowing that there was people that were not so smart, that thought they were like, "Oh, well, if I don't hear it, it's not going to bother me. And if it doesn't bother me, I'll be happier." And, that's it. It's not good. It's not good. You stay in the synagogue. You're part of the community. You want to be part of the community. There's good. There's happy occasions. And there's occasions where we need to grow up and we need to take responsibility. That's what it is. So people don't want to hear that they did bad, and they don't want to hear that they're going to get punished. But it's foolish. It's just really, really foolish. And you ever hear of the Chafetz Chaim? Chafetz Chaim? He has that book that you're supposed to be daily mitzvot, you're supposed to be learning. So the Chafetz Chaim said, you know what it's like? He says there was once a very dangerous road. There was this area with a very dangerous road that went up and down a mountain. It curved, it twisted on the mountainside, and over here is a mountain, steep. Over there, steep cliff, very narrow road. So, and the holes in the street, and people were scared to drive in that road, and you could fall off. So this guy had to get somewhere, and that was the quickest way to go. So his friend said, "You're not going to take that road, are you? It's dangerous. Your wagon, it will, one slip, and you can." No, don't be ridiculous. I'll close my eyes, and I won't see the holes in the road, and I'll be fine. His friend said, "What are you, nuts? You're gonna die. This is terrible." So that's how we know this is foolish. You want to walk out on the potholes. You want to walk out on the holes in the road. You want to walk out on the steep hills. It's foolish. It's like closing your eyes. That's not what you're supposed to do. So that's what's going on over here. I didn't really talk too much about what's going on from different Pesukim in the Torah, but I did give you some question sheets. Does everyone have one? Let's see if we can go through them. What time is it? It's about 9:15. So let's go through these for a few minutes. Okay, what I want you to do before we read each question is find the verse. 26:3. So where is that? Let's see if you can find it first.
709.
It's 709. Okay. So now, since you got it, you want to read the question for us?
The question said, which blessing is promised regarding the rain?
Okay, and the answer is going to be?
If you will follow my decrees and observe my commandments and perform them.
So the answer is the rain will come in its season. The rain will come in its time. Okay? That's the simple answer to that question. The rain will come in its time. Remember we said a good time is Friday night. That's a good time for me. But a good time for the rain is whenever it's the, you don't want rain necessarily in the summertime. You want it, in the winter when you want the crops to grow. Okay, number 2, we're the same spot. So which blessing is promised regarding fruit trees? Any answers? The answer is the fruit trees will bear a lot of fruits. Actually, if you read it a little closer, you will see that it's not only fruit trees that are going to bear fruit. What does it say? Trees. What does it say? Read it. The Etz Hasadeh, and the tree of the field, Yitem Piryo, will give its fruit. It doesn't say the fruit trees will give you lots of fruit. It says the trees, even trees that don't normally give fruit, will give you fruit. They'll come up with something that's edible. The bark, I don't know, something. Okay. And then if you go to the next sentence, which blessing is promised regarding harvesting the fields? Remember what we talked about? How there will be so much wheat that the seasons of sowing and harvesting will overlap with the harvesting of grapes. And then when you're done with the grapes, time for the wheat. So that's all comes from verse 4. And also in verse 4, the next one, which blessing is promised regarding security? And it says, very easy, Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, will live safely in the land. So if you keep all the mitzvot, this is what you're getting. You're going to get all these blessings. There's a lot of curses. Believe me, they're awful. They're disgusting. And I should tell you, most of them happened. And if it didn't happen, they're going to be happening now. I mean, we're not headed for good times. We need to grow up as a community. But many of them happened already. Number 5, which blessing is promised regarding wild animals? Well, simple. You're not going to have wild animals in Israel that are going to attack you and that are going to hurt you. It's not going to be there. That's it. Okay. Question 6. In chapter 26:6. Right, so we're still on the same page, right?
Yes.
Okay. The Torah says that a sword will not pass through the land. What is the meaning of the word sword here? So try and,
War.
You got it. That's exactly right. Sword means war over here. But it says a sword will not pass through the land. It's that you're not going to have war. That's a good thing. We don't want war. Okay. We are up to what number? 7? 8. I only care about number 11, so we're going to go fast. Which blessing is promised regarding our enemies? So this is a pretty interesting one. Look at this one inside, and then tell me what's the problem with the math. Find the answer and then tell me the problem with it.
Yeah, that only 5 will pursue hundreds. I mean, how is
So if 5,
the numbers?
okay, so let's just do the math. If you do the mitzvot and you study the Torah, God says your enemies come, 5 of you will chase away 100. Okay, and continue reading. What happens next?
And your enemies will fall before you by the sword.
That's verse 8, right?
Oh,
And 100 will pursue how many? So if 5 chases away 100, what would 100 be?
2,000.
Huh?
10,000.
No, if 5 chases away 100,
Then 100,
100 should chase away like
25.
how about 2,000?
Okay, there.
Does that work? Anyone else? 20 times, is that, am I right?
Pennies.
Okay. So if 5 equals 100, right? That's like 20 for every one, right? Okay, so 100 should be 2,000, okay? Except that, what does it say in the Torah? So that's an interesting thing. So if 100 chases away, you'll get much more than the 2,000 you should have. You're getting up to thousands, Rivava. What does it say? 10,000? So there must be something about strength in numbers. There's a difference between 5 people doing something and 100 people doing something. 100 people doing something has much more power. 5 times more power. I don't know percentages.
I think that, I mean, the point that I get from this, and Rashi is mentioning, is it's not a linear response.
Right.
It isn't one to
Spiritual,
one. It
yeah.
isn't a mathematical thing. The math is being used as an example to show how powerful the groups of people that humankind can be.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah, that's the power in numbers.
Right.
So if you know, right now we're talking about pursuing our enemies, but imagine you're doing it slow.
right.
And
Both
so
ways.
if you can invite 5 people over to your table on a Friday night, wow, that's beautiful, you know. Don't try inviting 100. Don't try it, trust me. I've done it before. It's a little too much. We've done programs like that. It gets a little bit carried away. 5 is good. 5 is good. But you're right. You can do so much more if people are into the same things. Okay, on the verse, the last one on the page, I think it's 10, or is it 11? Let's see, where are we now? What number? 9?
Yes.
So what does the Torah say about old food and new food? Okay, so this is kind of the same thing that we were talking about before, that there will be so much food that the Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, will have to take out the old food from their storage area. They used to store the food under the ground and in dry places. You got to get rid of it to make room for the new stuff. That's how much food there's going to be. So the blessing in the food. Number 10 is, I don't know what verse this is. Let's see if we can find it. Which blessing is promised regarding the Mishkan? And what does it mean?
11.
Yeah. Huh?
I will place my sanctuary among you, and my spirit will not reject you.
So that's verse 11? Okay, so I didn't write that one down for questions.
It's on page 7.
26:11.
Thank you. Have to make a change. Okay, so what it means is that, so let's take a look at it. What is this verse telling us? Verse 11? What's the takeaway from it? I will place my sanctuary. This is the Mishkan, the temple, the holy temple, the Bet HaMikdash. I will place my sanctuary among you. V'lo tigal nafshi atem. My spirit will not reject you. So this is essentially God telling us that He will always be close to us. He's going to place His temple, so we have a place to become close to God. So today we don't have it. So we have synagogues, we have study halls, we have classrooms, we have rabbis, we have friends, we have teachers, we have internet, we have classes galore all over the place. And so that's a very, very, very important thing. Okay, now the last one that I really want to do tonight is you got to go to verse 46. So that's going to take you to
7:16,
7:16, 7:17. Okay. So this is the chukim and the Torot. It says, Ele achukim ve'amishpatim. So these are, after all these things, It says, these are the chukim, and these are the mishpatim, and these are the Torah. So look at those in English. These are the decrees, the ordinances, and the teachings. Remember, I told you that there's a category of mitzvot called chok or chukim. You got to do it because God said you got to do it. That's a chok. You don't get to make up your own rule. This is God's rule. You don't understand why? You know what? There's a little thing about putting on tefillin. We're supposed to put on tefillin. Men are supposed to put on tefillin every day. And when we put it on, we usually read some Torah passages. And one of the passages we read, Ki yishalecha vincha machar le'mor mazot. Torah says, when your son will ask you tomorrow, what is this? Why are we doing tefillin? Then you'll tell him, because God took us out of Egypt with a strong hand, outstretched arm and a strong hand. So wait a minute. Let me read you that sentence again. Ki yishalecha vincha machar le'mor. When your son will ask you tomorrow, what is this? What? Tomorrow? My kid never waits. When he wanted to ask a question, if he had a question, he would ask it right away. So your kid asks you a question today. Torah says no. When your kid asks you tomorrow, what's Torah teaching us? Keep looking. Torah's teaching you, you have a question. Your son has a question. Tell him, great question. Do the mitzvah. Put on the tefillin. Tomorrow, we'll find the answer. Next week, we'll find the answer. But you have to do the mitzvah first. So some people say, well, Rabbi, if you teach me all about the spirituality of putting on tefillin and what I'm supposed to feel, and this is close to my heart, and my head's close to my brain, and I'm supposed to elevate my body, and all this spiritual mumbo jumbo, great. But you know what? Come with me tomorrow morning at 6:15 when I start my synagogue, and you put your tefillin on at 6:15 in the morning before God wakes up. Okay, it's that early. So no, I'm just kidding about that. But it's early. You think I'm going to be thinking about all the spirituality and all the everything that's in there? So I'm not going to be doing that. What I'm going to be thinking about is I got to do this. That's my job. So today I just do it. But tomorrow, tomorrow, do the mitzvah today. Tomorrow, you'll find the answer. You do it enough, you're going to hear it over and over and over again. So the question says, the Torah says that a Torah doesn't say the Torah that God gave us. What does it say? Torah. These are the Torah. These are the ordinances and teachings, and it's called Torah. Torah means teaching. Torah means teachings that God gave us. How many Torahs are there?
2.
2. What are they? Huh?
And
Right. And what were you saying in here?
Like the oral, I don't know.
The written and the oral. The Shabbat and Shabbat Peh. So yeah. So basically, the rabbis explain that when it says Torot, Torahs, more than one. God forbid, there's more than one Torah. No, there's only, the answer is there's only one Torah, but it has 2 components. 2 components of the one Torah. So we call them 2 different teachings of the same one teaching. I don't want to confuse it. There's one Torah. God gave us one Torah. But that one Torah has the written part and the oral part. And do you think you can understand the written part without the oral explanation? You cannot. You wouldn't know how to do tefillin. You wouldn't know how to do many of the mitzvot. It says put a mezuzah on your door. What's a mezuzah? What goes inside? What way? What direction? This way, that way. Maybe you have to write a whole Torah scroll inside there. How do you know only the paragraphs that are in there? So the written Torah is the 5 Chumashim, the Bible, right? The 5 books of the Torah. The oral Torah is the Mishnah and the interpretation of those mitzvot. Okay? All right. So I think that's all the questions we have. And there's a lot more that we could do on this Parsha. But I know it's late and we started late, but I was tired before I got here, so I apologize. But I want to wish you all that you should be able to come, get all of the blessings in the Torah. learn it. God loves you, He wants to bless you and receive them. Come on Shabbat, hear it, and then I want to wish you all a very special happy holiday of Shavuot. This should prepare you to want to stay up and learn Torah.